this. Christy had prepared the presentation. I'm going to go through it the best that I can. So these are the things that we want to discuss with y'all today. Important dates for the program, eligible activities, ineligible costs, procurement, the application package, and we want to take any questions that y'all have. Okay, so 16.75 million was allocated from the CARES Act to develop outdoor fitness and recreational parks. We are calling this the Louisiana Outdoors Program. Sorry. So the program, as you're aware, is has a national objective to benefit low to moderate income residents. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, so $10 million has been set aside on a competitive basis to municipalities that are at least 51% low mod income. This is further broken down by population. So for municipalities with a population of 5,000 or more, you can apply for up to 400,000, 1,000 to 4,999 population up to 225,000. And if you have a population of 999 or less, you can apply for up to 125,000. Okay, so the activities that are eligible for participation in this program are public facilities improvements, and this is for construction, reconstruction, or rehabilitation of parks, playgrounds, or green space that is publicly owned or to be publicly owned, where the service area is primarily residential and serving an LMI area. Acquisition is also eligible. The property must be vacant prior to the application. And we encourage clearance and demolition of blighted property. That's also an eligible activity. And you can apply for administration fees to be covered up to $50,000. Pre-agreement will not be allowed. The eligible activities, to be more specific, include outdoor fitness and recreational parks. Again, that must be open and available for public use by all residents of the jurisdiction. Options for handicapped and disabled individuals are required, and you should include that in your plan for your project. Reasonable fees may be charged for the use of the facilities, but they should not be excessive and should not have the effect of excluding low and moderate income persons. Another thing to consider with fees is program income is discouraged. So they should be just sufficient maybe to cover your expenses. Ineligible costs, any clearance and demolition on property with no end use is not allowed. So if you're gonna, the property that you're gonna clear a blighted structure on must be the property that you're gonna develop your recreational facility. Purchase of equipment and other movable property is not allowed. So only permanent fixtures to the facility. Indoor facilities are also not allowed. We're making an exception for bathrooms. And it's important to not create fields or facilities for organized sports. And that is basically the program is to encourage outdoor facilities so that we are not spreading coronavirus. So anything that has too much contact is not going to be allowed. And then any costs that are going to be paid for by another source, it would be duplicative. So that is also not allowed. Okay, Christy knows a lot more about procurement than I do. But if you're planning on using federal dollars to procure administrative, engineering, or architectural firms, you must follow federal procurement guidelines. So if you're paying for these things out of local or other sources of funds that are not federal, then this would not necessarily be required. But if you're using our funding, then you do have to follow federal procurement guidelines. If this is going to be the case, you do need to get with us and we'll provide technical assistance for you. This procurement staff is Christy Gatley, sorry, William Hall, and Denise McGee. So if you have questions specifically about procurement, please contact one of these people. Okay, so I'm going to go over the application package and I'll need to share my screen. So hopefully y'all are seeing the application package on your screen. If you're not, someone please let me know.
We can see it, Janelle.
Okay. Okay, so the application is posted on our website, and there's also a checklist that is posted there as well that you can utilize. Anytime that you have questions about any of this information, please contact us. And I'm going to try to make it somewhat brief, but go over the forms that you need to fill out. So the first form is the general information form. And on this form, you need to make sure that you list all of your sources of funds and the status of each of the funds. When the chief elected official signs this form, he is basically verifying all of the information in the completed application package, and he's attesting that the information is true and correct. Each form does have instructions behind the form, so hopefully that will help a lot. The budget cost summary form is a further breakdown of your budget. Section 1 is broken down by eligible activity. So that is how you should break the funding down. For each eligible activity, public facilities, acquisition, clearance and demolition, and administration, you should show what source of funding is paying for each of those, whether it's CDBG or other sources. Section 2 is where you're going to break down only the CDBG CV funding. And you can see the breakdown there. It's again the same eligible activities, just broken down a little bit further. If the local government is, if CDBG CV funds are going to be used to cover administration, engineering, or architectural costs, a contract will have to be executed and procured based on federal guidelines, and the contract information will be listed here. Again, an executed contract must be in place prior to services being performed and when using CDBG CV funds to pay for the services. We cannot reimburse you for expenditures if they are incurred prior to the existence of this contract. Okay, a jurisdictional map is also required, and this should basically show all of the proposed locations for your different facilities, and it should also show the concentrations of minorities and low to moderate income people. If there are no concentrations and the low, moderate, and minorities are evenly dispersed, that should be stated on the map. Okay, the next form is the facility form. It's important that you fill out one of these forms for each facility, and you're going to list the details of each facility. Also needed is a detailed project description. You're going to attach a separate narrative for this, and instructions go through details of what that narrative should include. It's important for us to know the ownership of the facility, so that documentation is also needed, and a cost estimate that's certified by a licensed engineer or architect verifying your costs is also required. Okay, if a subrecipient is needed for your project, and that would be in certain limited circumstances, you will fill out the subrecipient information form as well. Okay, so this is the application certification form. On this form, you're certifying all of this information. So by signing this form, you're letting us know that all of this information is true and correct. We do want to let you know that if the facility will not be open and available for all residents of the jurisdiction for whatever reason, you need to contact us, and that is stated several times in the application. Okay, the performance threshold, these are items that were also in the guidance that we provided at the beginning of the program. These items are important for us to know your capability, basically, of successfully completing the program. So you need to select everything that applies on this form. The scoring criteria is what we're going to use to score your application. And you should, again, check all that apply, and you should attach your supporting documentation. Anything that's not supported by documentation, we cannot consider. Okay. And if you're not going to request CV funds to pay for your engineering, architect costs, your administrative costs, you have to complete these certifications that you're going to pay for them with local or other funding. Resolutions are also required for both of these. And your proof of publication is needed as well. And this is for your citizen participation requirements and your notice for making the application available for view. Okay, the statement of assurances should be completed by each applicant, or rather signed. If there is a subrecipient, then another statement of assurances will be needed by the subrecipient. The disclosure report is fairly straightforward. The important thing to remember on this is that the answer to part 1, question 1 should be no, and the form should be signed and dated. Okay, so I think we're going to take questions now. Hopefully you'll be able to hear a couple of us. So if you have questions, please enter them into the chat. And we'll try to answer them as quickly as possible.
So now there's a question. The eligibility forms require the public hearing proof of publication. Do we resubmit that public hearing information for the full application?
I'm sorry, you kind of broke up a little bit.
So the eligibility forms, they had them submit the public hearing proof of publication. Do you need that resubmitted for the full application when they send it?
Yes.
And so far, that's the only question. Can you please discuss important dates?
Okay, so I think what Chrissy was gonna go over was just the deadline for application submission, which is January 7th.
Yes, that's correct. January 7th, 2022. And we need them in our office, physically in our office by 4:30 PM.
Are there any other questions?
When do we anticipate funding projects?
Well, we'll get them in and we'll assign analysts to review them and go over them. So I would anticipate probably by mid-February. We'll have the award letters out.
Sometimes for blighted, somebody asks for elaboration on a blighted structure. So it could be, it depends on like kind of zoning, I think, for that. William might be able to talk more about that, but buildings or houses that need demolishing is my understanding. Let's see, somebody asked about work on a concession stand at your park and a window unit for that. I would say no, that wouldn't be eligible. So you're gonna need, Mayor Vadrine asked about the public hearing information for the park. Yes, we need the one that you had, the original one, and then you're also gonna have to publish saying that the application is ready for review. So we'll need both of those publications. Nicole asked about using local staff to administer the grant project, what documents are needed. I'm going to need you to email that question directly to one of our procurement staff. Why don't you email Christy? It's christy.galley2@la.gov to talk about that more. A public pavilion, an open air pavilion would be an eligible project, yes. Somebody asked for administrative services, do you have any guidance on what the maximum allowable cost that the grant will cover based on populations and the maximum construction cost? So the maximum allowable is 50,000 for administration. Construction, it's going to depend on the entity size. Let me see. Oh, it's before. So cities are eligible for up to 400,000 for the total grant. Towns are 225,000 and villages are 125,000. So that's for the total cost though. When do you need to hold a second public hearing? So you're gonna need to finish your procurement first, complete the entire application. And when it's ready for review, like when it's completed, then you're going to have the second public hearing. Oh, it's not a public hearing. You're going to run a second notice saying that it's ready for review. So the public can come in and look at the application and that you'll be able to receive comments on that. Someone asked, can funds be used to demolish and renovate a current walking path and playground? Yes, but you have to build something else. You can't just demolish it, but yes. What documentation is required for the national objective portion of the facility form? So everyone is low to moderate area based on HUD's data. Was there an ABF in that, Janelle, in the application?
No, all that we're requesting in the application is that they answer the number 3 on the facility form, just the total number of beneficiaries, the number of LMI individuals, and the percent of low to moderate income.
So that's all you need to document at this time.
You're gonna need the Title VI information somewhere.
We may
We're gonna work on
request, additional information after, but in the application, that's all that we're asking for.
I asked, is a gazebo considered a permanent structure? I mean, I guess it depends on your type of gazebo, I would assume, but to me it is, yes. Like if it's like a small pavilion, right? So I would say yes. Any other questions? If you, if you have any other specific part questions, you can email any of us, and we'll be happy to help. Like I said, the slideshow and this presentation will be published. They're available now. The video will be published later today. And we're here and happy to help anytime y'all are having questions and trying to develop programs. Remember that you do have to go through our office for procurement though. So make sure that you contact our staff regarding that. I don't see any other questions that we haven't answered. So make sure you follow us on Facebook and look at our YouTube page, and we'll be happy to help you. And thank you for joining us today.